Ladies and gentlemen, it's the weekend. You know what that means. Do I really need to say anything else? Do I really need to expound further on the usual weekly machinations that I have to open up the show? Well, to be fair, I kind of have to on a weekly basis. It's an obligation. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is the weekend. You know what that means. It is another episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast here, streaming live on my Twitter account and the Bunsen Bruises YouTube channel. Of course, for those of you that have joined us on all the episodes so far, we thank you once again for joining us and on this NFL journey that we have, that we are going around the league, the gridiron as a whole. But before I continue, I must, of course, introduce my compatriots on the show. First off, the man to my left or right, depending on where you are watching this and what your depth of perception is, ladies and gentlemen. He's wearing a beautiful yellow shirt. He is a true warrior right now because he saw a Dead and Company show last night, and he woke up early for this, people. So he deserves a lot of credit. Last week was his flu game. This week might be his stomach virus game. I don't know what you want to call it. He's just putting up performances when he's not 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Zuckman / Zucktails. Zucker, how are we doing, bud?
I'm doing great. You know, nothing's going to keep me away from the show at this point, as you can see. So, unless apparently I'm on a mountain in Pennsylvania. But other than that,
yeah. To be fair, the mountains of PA, it's tough service there.
It is. It was tough service there, unfortunately.
Hey, that's how it rolls sometimes. And of course, you know, we have our typical trio, but you know, I have to introduce our guest of honor as always because he's in his own studio this week because he kind of demanded it. Sandoval is in the bottom corner, one of the bottom corners of this show, and he is just going to grace us with his presence this whole time. Sadly, we have no trivia this week, so Sandoval won't be able to continue his crown as the true trivia king of the show. But you know, he'll have his moments here and there, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we keep him there. And of course, in the other corner, I introduced him last because they always say you got to save the best for last, as he is joined by his adorable and lovable pet dog, our guy, Podfather Rick. Rick, how we doing? You've had a busy morning so far.
I'm running like the Queens County Animal Farm at this point right now with the damn deer to my left, and then you know Sienna wanted to join in on the show this time around, although she might fall asleep during some part of it, which is more a knock on me than it is on her. I woke her up pretty early this morning, so if she falls asleep, it's not because we're boring, it's because she's a puppy and they need 20 hours of sleep a day apparently. So you know. Yeah, and Sandoval, he demanded his own studio, so I've been kicked to the living room with the lovely laundry room behind me over there, which is the den where all the rants are coming from this week. So you know, it's great.
We keep adding something to the rants, and I love the idea of there just being like Rick's rant den, like that's perfect. We just keep upgrading it every single week. We had
rant room.
The rant room, yes. It was a podium last week. Now we just have a whole room. It's beautiful.
Yeah. That's where I go to like slug out all the rants, basically. Figure out which ones I want to do in that week and figure out who's really pissed me off in the current week, basically. So, yeah, it's one of those weeks for sure.
Yes, and it is a long list, ladies and gentlemen. And just like Chris Jericho did years back, he's making his list. He's checking it twice, and he's ready to call out all the stupid idiots.
Oh. There are a lot of you out there.
He does the show with two of them as well.
You guys are lovable. You're not idiots. You're lovable.
Of course. But, ladies and gentlemen, we won't be wasting any more time. We're going to get straight to it. Of course, we are going to be talking about the NFC this week as we go through the pantheon of the divisions in the NFL. We have reached, arguably, I think over the last decade, what has been the most argumentative, inducing division in the league. The NFC East, it's also been called the NFC East because there have just been some terrible division winners and terrible years out of this division. Will we see another one like that this year? Who knows? You got to wait and find out to see what our thoughts are. But before we get to that, of course, I did mention no trivia this week. Sad face. But we do still have a game. And when you have America's Next Top show hosts here, you got to have at least a game happening. So, Justin, I pass the floor to you, my man. We have another resounding rendition this week. Rendition. I'm stumbling all over my words today. Of NFL Would You Rather. Justin, please take it away.
All right. So I was curious. I was thinking, going over some of the past episodes the last couple of weeks, and I was curious in your guys' opinions on a couple of teams. So now that we've gone through the schedule, their schedules, who do you think is more likely to have a winning record? The Lions or the Jaguars?
Well, we know Rick's choice.
I'm not saying that either one couldn't, but realistically, look at their schedule, look at the teams that they're playing. Who's more likely to have a winning record?
Did you see that yawn? That's the boring question. See, she's a lion. That's my answer. I picked them to win the NFC Central or the NFC North, rather. NFC Central. Jesus Christ. I'm getting my divisions mixed up, baseball and football and basketball and all that sort of stuff. Pacific. No. I picked them to win the NFC North for a reason. I think this team, look, I think the Jaguars are a year away, maybe 2 years away from being a 10-win team potentially. I think they're going to take a good step forward this time around, but I think the way that the Colts kind of really rebuilt themselves is a key that they're going to be first in that division. The Jaguars' schedule is trickier. Like I said, the Lions have the Seahawks and the Panthers. I know one team we'll talk about for like 30 seconds when it's NFC West time. And the Panthers we spoke about. I mean, look, Baker Mayfield does make a world of a difference for Carolina, but I still like Detroit a lot better. I really do. I think they're a much better team. And I think that it's one of those cases where it's just a matter of the Lions have more talent, I think, than the Jaguars do right now. But the Jaguars are up and coming. And I think you can see Jacksonville probably win that AFC South in a couple of years when Matt Ryan passes the torch over to insert quarterback name here. I think the Lions just have a better overall team. I think, top to bottom, I think that they're Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, I think is an even. Like if you were to do the picks, I'd say that's even. But I feel like the Lions just have a more complete unit, and they have Dan Campbell, who's coached for a year there. Doug Peterson's brand new, so while he's not Urban Meyer, there's still going to be some growing pains this year, I think, for this team. So for me, I think the knee-eating Lions are going to have the winning record instead of the Jaguars, I think.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I'm with Rick. I think between those two teams, I think Detroit is just a year ahead compared to where Jacksonville is. And I think part of that is just Urban Meyer really set them that far back. Like, I think Trevor Lawrence has to prove to a lot of people this season, I think more than what he really should have to, because of the damage of Urban Meyer. I think a lot of the guys in that locker room are going to have to recover from what he did. Like, I don't think it can be understated. He set that team back. And I think that's part of the reason why Jacksonville is still projected by many to finish towards the bottom of the division. It's really like we covered it. It was the first division that we covered. It's between them and the Texans. And we very briefly went through those two teams for a reason. So I give Detroit the slight edge because I think Detroit will finish third in their division, like for sure. I think with Jacksonville, it's a conversation on will they finish, if they could finish last or not. Because Houston, for all that we said about them, like they could surprise some people this season. You never know.
Now, I brought up this question for a reason. I was not here for the NFC North the NFC North week. And Rick, you chose the Lions to win the division.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you're telling me you would take Jared Goff over Trevor Lawrence. Even to put them in the same category as a push. Those are the claims you're making?
Here's the thing. Trevor Lawrence by far is the more talented number one pick. If you're going between him and Jared Goff, I think Goff only got there because the team that was picking number one desperately needed the quarterback, and Goff was just the best option that was there. Trevor Lawrence is a once-in-a-generation talent, and I think that speaks volumes about how in 2 years he's equal to what Jared Goff has been in 4 or 5. I don't know how many years he's been in the league. My thing is that Trevor Lawrence still has a window to kind of learn a little bit more. Whereas Jared Goff is kind of on that no-nonsense, this is either it, like you do well this year, or you're gone and we're going to bring in a new quarterback. And I think this is the chance, like I said, in the NFC North Divisional that week that we did, where this is going to be his diamond season. He's going to turn into that diamond because he's not a bad quarterback. He's just a guy who's reckless and who's been in unfortunate situations. And like I said to Jurgen that week, we haven't seen a full season of Jared Goff in 2 years. So if we see a full season of Jared Goff, expect the Lions to really cement themselves as a team to fear in their division. And my thing, too, I look at this year's draft, the number one pick or the number 2 pick. If I'm going for Travon Walker or Aiden Hutchinson, who would I rather take? Aiden Hutchinson is that blue chip prospect who was can't miss coming out and really made his way through Michigan. Travon Walker only made his way up recent draft boards because of a good pro day or because of good measurables. I think that Aiden Hutchinson, though, is the better overall prospect. So if I'm going like recent draft history, I'm going Detroit as well. I think that's just the best play. And like we were saying, Jacksonville's a year away from being good. I know I had them second because I think Doug Peterson's going to do wonders, but they're a year away from really being that competitive team. And I think the problem, too, is that they've got a bit of a rougher time because if you talk about the AFC, you talk about the fact that the West is going to be dominant. You talk about the fact that the division winners are going to be dominant. Jacksonville's kind of like that in that Jets mold where I can see them being 8 or 9 going into the final 2 weeks and contending for a playoff spot, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah. I just think overall right now Detroit's roster is more set compared to Jacksonville. I think running back wise, if you're the Jaguars, you have to see what Travis Etienne could potentially do because he missed all of last season, and it being I think it was a Liz Frank injury that left him out last season. Like that is big for a running back to have that injury before he even got started. Whereas I think you have a more complete running back room right now in Detroit. Funny enough, actually, you took DJ Chark from the Jaguars and added him on to Detroit. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, one of the top 5 wide receiver names in the NFL. Not a top 5 wide receiver, just a top 5 wide receiver name. You know, he's not Chase Claypool. He's no Chase Claypool. He's actually better than Chase Claypool. But you have that. You have TJ Hawkinson, who's just a physical freak in nature. You have the offensive line, who is Penei Sewell, who is going to be a bookend left tackle for this generation.
Guys. I know all the players they have. I know all the moves that they've made. Okay?
Well, Justin, do you want TJ Hawkinson or Evan Ingram? That's the answer. That's the answer.
You're gonna decide who's gonna be better based on who's got the tight end. I got news for you. Evan Ingram's done way more in this league than TJ Hawkinson has done.
Yeah, he's fumbled more footballs than TJ Hawkinson has in this league.
TJ Hawkinson's played
and dropped more passes.
Look
from Danny Dimes.
You guys are drinking. I want to know what supermarket you guys are going to. You guys are drinking the Kool-Aid.
Lidl.
I don't. Listen, I think the Lions will take a step forward this year. I really think that they could be good. They could maybe steal a couple divisional games. They're in a competitive division, and I'm not talking about the Bears. I'm talking about the Vikings, and I'm talking about the Packers.
The Jaguars, Justin, the Jaguars this year play the AFC West. That's 4 losses right there. They play the Colts twice. That's 2 more losses based upon what we've talked about. They play the Commanders. That's a loss. So you've already got 7 losses on your schedule as it is. So, and then you have the Ravens, so that's 8, and the Lions, that's 9.
And they're probably going to lose one of the games to Tennessee.
Done.
You're talking like the Lions aren't playing the AFC West, the AFC NFC West this year, and the NFC North. They got arguably 4 losses against the Vikings and the Packers. You think they're going to take 1 or 2 of those games?
Yes, I do.
So. Maybe they take 1.
They take 2. They split with both.
I don't see it.
That was his thing.
I don't understand how you could assume
he has them
going to
splitting.
take more than 1 game of those 2. Those are tough teams, and they do play the guys like the Rams this year. What's the AFC
the Lions don't play the Rams. The Lions play the Seahawks.
Yeah, they dodged a bullet. Detroit did.
What's the AFC division they're playing?
The East.
The AFC East?
Yeah.
You think they're going to take 1 from the Bills? You think they're going to beat the Patriots? The Dolphins?
I don't think the Bills, but I think the Dolphins game could be a surprise win because it's home. I think the Lions have that home field advantage where it's a dome, sure, but I think they have that home field advantage where it might work out better for them.
Boys, December 4th, 1:00, Fox, Lions, Jaguars.
That solves it. That solves it. That's the answer to all of our questions right there. Lions, Jaguars.
I'm not arguing
that game on the calendar.
I'm not arguing about the would you rather question anymore. I'm not saying the Jaguars will be better than the Lions. I'm saying the Lions are not going to win the NFC North.
Oh, yeah, okay. And you know what? When they do, you'll buy the Cole Strange jersey.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
so is that what we're doing? Loser buys a Cole Strange jersey?
So this is how it's going to work. So we've now shown the people our cards.
Well, while we talk about this, I actually have an idea on how to do like points wise. But go ahead, talk about it, Jerry.
So what the idea is that we have our 8 divisions and we all have our orders. I may have to go back and double check on all my orders, but I'm pretty sure I remember all the division orders I have. But essentially, what we're all going to do, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, after we go through the 8 divisions, we're going to have an episode after recapping everything and giving our playoff picture. What we're going to do based off our divisions and our playoff picture, at the end of the season, whoever has the least amount of points in a point system that we're going to make up in the coming weeks, because we are literally doing this on the fly. This is the first conversation we've had in depth about this. So you're welcome, everyone. The last place person there will have to get themselves a Cole Strange jersey. And that is just something to say the least. Although now, that's bet number one. I think we need a second bet now between you two, between that Lions and Jaguars game on December 4th. I think we need a second bet between you two.
We can come up with something.
Jamarcus Russell jersey.
Oh god.
No, come
Jets.
on.
Wait, was he on the Jets for a little bit?
Come on. Josh Johnson jersey.
Josh Johnson.
From any of the teams that he's played for, including the San Diego Fleet.
The hardest part is actually going to be finding these jerseys.
If you could find a San Diego Fleet Josh Johnson jersey, I think you got to
find them. Yeah.
I think if you find a San Diego's Fleet Josh Johnson jersey, I don't think you should take it out the box. I think you should wait and sell it in like 5 years for several $1 million.
You have to frame your Josh Johnson jersey.
For San Diego Fleet, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I'll even get a Josh Johnson Brooklyn Bolts football jersey from way back when in the FXFL days. That great league.
If you can find that, just
I have a connection. I have a contact.
Perfect.
I have a contact.
Perfect. So the terms to be decided on the on that Jaguars Lions game, but just know, ladies and gentlemen, that is one of the games that we have circled on the calendar for the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. So
I mean, Justin, I was going to offer you a Grateful Dead bobblehead, but you wanted to keep a football jersey, so
you want to do it for a bobblehead.
Well, I know if you won, I was going to offer you a Grateful Dead bobblehead. I have a connection that can get me an Anthem of the Sun teddy bear bobblehead from a couple years ago.
Pretty cool.
It's actually a really nice one.
That is pretty cool.
We'll figure that out behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen. Who knew the Lions and the Jaguars would take up this much? I'm pretty sure they've taken up more.
Minutes.
I think they've taken up more airtime on this episode than we did when we reviewed both of them on their actual divisions. I think it's pretty close.
This is rare. This is running into Falcons territory with how much we're talking about them in the my drive home episode.
Yes. So moving on, Justin. Any more would you rather's?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it a little shorter this time. Let's go with teams that are more likely to win their division. Now I'm going to give you 3 teams, and I want to know your opinion on who's going to be the most likely and who's going to be the least likely. The Raiders, the Ravens, or the Dolphins.
None of the above.
You have to pick one. It's called Would You Rather.
Who's more likely to win their division? They're both teams that are up and coming. They made a lot of moves this offseason. They should be strong teams, at least playoff contenders. What are the odds they win their division?
Well, okay, so I will give you my one that I think. I think the Raiders. I think the Raiders are the most likely of the 3 to win the division because that AFC West is a gunslinging division and is a shootout division. I think any of those 4 teams could win that division this year because of all the moves that they made. I think in the case of Miami, I knocked them because of Buffalo. Buffalo is just too complete of a team to really make a big difference, I think. I know Miami made a lot of moves on the offense, but I think Buffalo's just too complete to really take them off the top of the pedestal. Baltimore, again, I still have some reservations, but I also think Cincinnati got a lot better too. I think the Raiders went in lockstep with all the other teams in that division. And so I think in that case, the Raiders have the best chance because either that division is going to cannibalize itself and one team's going to win at 9-8, or they're all going to be really good. And the winning team in that division could be 12-5 or 11-6 and win on a tiebreaker. And I think that could favor the Raiders well too. Because I think the thing too is like I was saying with Jared Goff, this is a big year for Derek Carr. This is a make or break year for him too. And so I think now that he's got Devontae Adams on that roster, I think it makes it all the more significant, all the more impactful for him and this team to make significant strides moving forward. So for me, like I said, I think Las Vegas has the best chance. I'm not going to say that every team of those groups is going to win it, but I think the Raiders have the best chance of the 3.
Personally, I have the Ravens because, kind of like you said, I think in terms of, I'm just going to boil it down ultimately to division competition. And there's only one team in their division the Ravens really have to worry about compared to the Raiders, where it's all 6 games are going to be bloodbaths in that division. Like we will literally see like the closest thing to what the old Eurasian steppes were in the days of the Mongol hordes between the AFC West battles. Like it's going to be blood spilled on the field. Whereas I think with the Ravens, you just have one team you have to worry about. It's just the one team in that division you have to worry about. And that's the Cincinnati Bengals. And fully healthy, Lamar Jackson, like it's more than a fair chance. We all even said like they're going to split those games. So it's going to come down to everything else. And I think like unlike a lot of teams, the Ravens aren't a team where it's like we look at their out of division schedule and we really have to question them. Like I think the Ravens are a team where it's like if we give them 6 tough out of division games, we think they could go 4-2 in 6 tough games. Unlike a lot of these other teams, especially like all due respect, the Dolphins, I think the Bills are going to pummel them both times. And the Raiders, I think it's going to be tough for the Raiders.
So the problem is that if we're going based upon this year, the Ravens have the NFC South this year. And that Tampa Bay, New Orleans, sure. The Carolina game just got a little more interesting to me because of Mayfield. I think that's going to be a great young quarterback matchup. I can now see that being a flip of the coin between the two teams because both defenses got a lot better too. So, but to your point, Justin.
And I will say the Steelers defense, that team is still there. I know that Big Ben's not there. It's going to be hard to score on that Steelers team. So I wouldn't put it past them to make those divisional games close. And the Deshaun games, they're gonna have. The rumor is he's only getting 4 to 6 games. They expect to have him during the season. I think whether or not he should or shouldn't be is not my. I'm not giving my opinion on that. But
well, let me say this to you, Justin, too. If it is 4 to 6 games, and if it's the latter half, Week 7's Baltimore, Cleveland. So that'll be a nice fun one too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think any of those games are a gimme. That Browns
even if he does get to play that first one, it's his first football game in almost 2 years. Like, there's going to be some rust.
I expect him to have some rust and not be all hands on deck right away. But I do expect him to come if he's going to play and he could be a semblance of what he was before he sat out and then is dealing with all this unfortunate incidents for him.
That he brought upon himself.
But, it's funny also, like, the whole time, like, and he's on the Texans, I feel like I heard a lot of people being like, it kind of seems like a setup, blah, blah, blah. He gets traded to the Browns, and everyone's like, he did that.
Well, if you get traded to Cleveland, clearly you're paying some penny.
Exactly.
Being traded to Cleveland is like, you just get there's no sympathy for you anymore because you did something to get traded to Cleveland.
I mean, look at LeBron. He had to leave Cleveland to go back to Cleveland. Like, look what happened.
And if he was never born in Akron, Ohio, he would have never gone back to Cleveland.
Could you imagine if he was born in like Pocatello, Idaho, or something stupid like that? Like the greatest player to come out of Sitka, Alaska, LeBron James.
Oh, I can't wait for the day where we have like a top 3 pick in any respective sport out of Alaska now. I want that.
You mean not hockey, though?
Just to clarify, Jared, you picked the Ravens, and you said the least likely was the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And Rick, you picked the Raiders, and the least likely was the Dolphins.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. We are united in our lack of faith of the Dolphins beating the Dolphins.
Again, it's not on the Dolphins. It's the fact that the Bills are just too good.
Division.
Yeah. The Bills are just too good.
The Bills, like the last 3-4 games that they've faced off, I think the Bills have won by an average of 20. Like, my God,
it blew them out last year.
Several times. Like,
and again, they didn't lose anybody. They only got better. They added Von Miller. They only got better.
They lost Cole Beasley.
They only got better.
They didn't lose anybody. They only got better.
They only got better. That's one less headache in the locker room. So
exactly.
No tears shed by Buffalo. It's like me. It's like the whole Robbie Anderson thing. I've said it on several podcasts. It's like if you're a Carolina Panthers fan and Robbie Anderson retires because you got Baker Mayfield, not shedding a tear, not at all.
They could have powerbombed Cole Beasley through a flaming table, and they wouldn't have been sorry.
Justin, do we have one last? Would you rather?
I got one last one. This is more of they're all pretty hypothetical, but this is very hypothetical. And which rookie do you believe is going to have the biggest impact for their team this year? Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall?
Ooh.
Just remind me real quick, who drafted Kenneth Walker again?
The Seahawks.
I mean,
Do the Seahawks still have Rashad Penny?
I believe so.
Because my only thing, and I mean, Kenneth Walker could just impress them in training camp and become the number 2 running back, but
Rashad Penny is always getting hurt.
that too, like you have to you take that into consideration. The Jets, Brees Hall there. Who else is in the? One of the Michael
Carter, Tevin Coleman, LaMichael Pirine. It's a crowded running back room in New York.
Yeah.
I think the deciding factor is going to be Rashad Penny's healthier. I think if Rashad Penny can stay healthy, I think Brees Hall has the bigger chance. If Rashad Penny gets hurt within the first couple of weeks of the season, I think Kenneth Walker might run away with that job.
Well, no, not necessarily. I think Chris Carson's still there in Seattle too.
Oh, is he? Jesus. But he gets hurt a lot too.
So he does, but I mean that's the thing is that Kenneth Walker will probably start third on the depth chart, and Brees Hall might climb to third, but I can't see him being used in other aspects except for, swing plays maybe right now. This is a tough one because honestly, this year's running back class, as good as Kenneth Walker and Brees Hall were in college, it wasn't really that impressive of a group for the draft. These are not guys who were going to be at the level when they came out of a Saquon Barkley. I'm not saying he's at the level now, but at that level where he's going to be your starter from day one. Both these guys are in development. If it was me, I think that Kenneth Walker was just more of a consummate professional, was a pro's pro. And I think that situation is a little bit better because, again, like you're saying, the injury history there is a bit of a question mark for both Penny and for Carson. But the running backs are going to get most of the ball in Seattle because Drew Lock and Geno Smith are going to spend most of the time flat on their back.
Whereas doesn't that speak to their offensive line? I mean, even if he's getting the ball a lot, how is he getting hit before he takes a step? That makes a difference.
But the thing is that looking at both of their styles, Brees Hall is more of a shifty back, whereas Kenneth Walker, I think, for my money, is more of a power back. Like he will absorb that first hit and keep on going. He will be as hard to bring down as Chris Fumatuma-Afala was in Pittsburgh way back when, and even at the recent buffet line. So I think it's one of those cases where it's just like I prefer a guy who can absorb the contact and keep on going instead of a guy who tries to make a cut and there goes his Achilles and he's done for the year.
Dang.
How much is going to happen though?
First off, props to me and Rick and the references we made in this episode so far. I just want to point that out because we've been on fire with that. I just don't know. I mean, as we've lost Rick temporarily. So for my money, honestly, personally, if I have to give the slight edge, I think I'll give the slight edge to Brees Hall. I just think at the end of the day, part of the reason, and I know we're focusing on health mainly for the Seattle running back room, but I also think in terms of accomplishments, there's a little bit more pedigree with those running backs in Seattle. Pete Carroll's more familiar with them. I think for the Jets, it could be potentially a little more wide open. I think if Brees Hall, I think between the two of them, if Brees Hall blows everyone out the water in training camp, I think he's easily starting. And preseason. Kenneth Walker could have a good preseason and a good training camp, and he could still maybe be at best the second running back, but those other two guys are getting paid to my knowledge. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Brees Hall here, but kind of like Rick said, I think both guys are in a situation where it's both need mitigating circumstances to go their way to get a lot more carries than what we're envisioning right now. And I think with running back situations, you just have to see what happens here, because how often is it that a 5th round running back could get a lot of starts? Freaking Alfred Morris broke out in his rookie season. I think he was undrafted or at least 7th round. And I'm almost certain there had to have been an injury or two that let him get in the starting job and then running away for his rookie season. And literally the only great season he had in his career because everything fell off a cliff right afterwards. So that's my take. I have Brees Hall by a very slight edge.
What was I going to say? Alfred Morris, I believe that was, and I'm really going back here. I believe that was Stephen Davis.
Was the other running back?
Washington, yeah. That's a name we haven't heard in a very long time. Stephen Davis. Where is he?
Well, while Rick does that research, we're going to move on. And speaking of Washington football teams, ladies and gentlemen, the Sports Agents of Chaos NFL Division Breakdowns continues this week. This is the 6th division we're going through, and it is the NFC East. Like I said at the top of the show, this is a division that has been very much debated about for a very long time. The Giants fans, Washington fans, Eagles fans, and Cowboys fans are always at each other's throats. The Giants and Eagles have both won a championship over the last 10, 11, 12 years, however long you have to make that numbers for the last Giants Super Bowl to count. Washington has just been trying to get itself out of the mud that Dan Snyder constantly makes them play in. And Jerry Jones and the Cowboys have been Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. Take with that statement what you will. And as Rick slowly but surely places the cap on his head, we go, ladies and gentlemen, to our breakdown of this infamous division. We could really go in any way, shape, or form. We could talk about any of these teams first. So we have the perfect impartial person here to do so. So, Rick, I'm going to have to ask you to take off the cap for a second.
Sure. Okay.
And I need you to communicate with Sandoval. What team does Sandoval want us to start
All right.
off?
Well, he's enjoying his own studio, by the way.
Okay.
Actually, Sandoval brought up a good point. He said, why don't we just go in alphabetical order? Why don't we start with Dallas?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. So I was considering starting with Dallas, but it's good to know that me and Sandoval have a mutual agreement here.
Don't get used to it. Don't get used to it.
So let's start this off, ladies and gentlemen, with the team that plays in the $1 billion playpen, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys won the division last season. They had an all-time offensive season. You could argue they had a running back over 1,000 yards. They had a receiver over 1,000 yards. Dak Prescott, I believe, put up close to. Actually, I think he put up over 5,000. Let me pull up the numbers here. He was close. He had just under 4,500 yards. Zeke had 1,000. CeeDee Lamb had a great year. They had double-digit interceptions from Diggs. They had the amazing rookie season from Micah Parsons. Everything looked like it could have came together for them. And in typical Cowboys fashion, they lost in the wild card game to the San Francisco 49ers because Dallas going to do what Dallas going to do. And a big part of that was because of just their out-of-division record was terrible in the NFL last season. They were, on paper, 12-5, looks good, but they were 6-0 in division, and you take that out, that means they're only 6-5 in out-of-division games. So clearly, they had the ability to beat up on the NFC East, very much so. And is that going to continue this season, I think is the big question. So the first person I'm going to throw it to, and let's just go over some of the changes on this roster real quick. Of course, the most important thing is one of their backup quarterbacks is Ben DiNucci still. That is the number one thing to point out. But no, running back wise, you still have that tandem in Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. They had to cut, and it was actually talked about on the show. One of it, not the first episodes actually, was me and Justin talking about them releasing Amari Cooper. Would have been releasing him before they ultimately essentially traded him to the Cleveland Browns. Which, to go from Dallas to Cleveland, have fun there, Amari. You have the tight end situation where they franchise tagged Dalton Schultz, Justin Schultz. I'm thinking hockey now. I'm thinking free agency. I'm sorry, boys. NHL free agency has had my mind wrapped up for a while now.
And no, Justin, the team Justin, then I guess.
Yes. They drafted Tyler Smith in the first round of this past draft, the offensive tackle. Very questionable pick that Jerry Jones claimed was their pick all along, which we're not buying that. And then you have the defense. You still have a relatively strong defense, but the big blunder of their offseason was losing Randy Gregory in that whole debacle that they tried to get funny with the language in his contract. And he said, yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that. I'm dipping. I'm going to Denver, and I'm going to sign for the same amount of money and be on a pretty good team that's not going to take advantage of him contract-wise. Overall, I think for the most part, that was the biggest departure on defense. I think they kept all their other main pieces for the most part. I believe it was in addition, they added Dante Fowler Jr. In this offseason, so that's a potential pass rusher there that could help out. Leighton Vander Esch is kind of on a prove-it year for him. He's fallen off really hard since his rookie season, which looked like he was looking like one of the better young linebackers in the game, and then he's fallen off a bit since. Trevon Diggs, we know him being the number one corner on that team. Still questions about the rest of that defensive back core. They have Malik Hooker and Jaron Kearse there. All kinds of things you could talk about the defense for the most part. So, Justin, I'm going to throw it to you first. Cowboys last season ran the division easily. I already know your opinion on this, but detail it to the people. Why is that not going to be the case this season? Why are you personally predicting a fall off for Dallas for 2022 compared to last year?
Some of the moves they made were head scratchers. I mean, you could have asked Amari Cooper to restructure. You could have seen if Lyle Collins would have restructured. You're getting rid of some of your top players and your most important players for guys that were good but haven't really proven all that much. CeeDee Lamb, he had a great season last year, but he was a number two receiver there. They had Amari Cooper stretching that field. They even had Michael Gallup, who hasn't been great since his rookie year, but draws coverage. Dalton Schultz, yeah, he's a really good tight end. He's serviceable. They're going to end up paying him a lot of money, and he's going to deserve it. But would you rather have Dalton Schultz or Lyle Collins? You're getting rid of your tackles, and you're going to pay Dalton Schultz to block because you're not going to have anyone that's going to be able to protect Dak Prescott. So, and you're not going to be able to have Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard run the ball effectively if you can't, keep that offensive line sturdy. So, I'm not expecting a huge drop off, but I don't have them winning the division this year. I think that they'll probably still maybe be in the running for a wild card spot. Um, we'll see what their record entails after we go through it all, but I expect a drop off this year from the Cowboys.
Rick, for a long time, Dallas has been considered a regular season team, and we've known that to be true. Plenty of good enough seasons under Jason Garrett whenever they weren't going 8-8, and we didn't just see him clap his hands up and down the sideline the entire time. Now you've had Mike McCarthy so far in his tenure, bit of a disastrous year one, followed by this year two, where again double-digit wins, make the playoffs, lose in the wild card game, and let's also just to bring that back in case people forget, there was the infamous, going to be infamous for years to come, final drive where they are trying to, the referee has to go in to set the ball because the referees have to set the ball before plays, and it quote unquote cost them, even though Dallas was trying to circumvent the rules and not allow the ref to do it. But that Dallas, in realizing what the rules are, doesn't necessarily go hand in hand, considering all the penalties they took, especially in that wild card game. So do you echo Justin's sentiment? This, for a long-time regular season team, are they going to have another bad regular season here?
Well, let's look at their first 5 games of the 2022 schedule. They host Tampa Bay in week 1. They host Cincinnati in week 2. They go to the Giants in week 3. They host Washington in week 4. They play at the Rams in week 5. That is a gauntlet of a schedule to start off your first 5 weeks of the season. The real question with Dallas lies in this statement. Dallas is an elite team because of blank. We can't really figure out a reason why you can say that. Micah Parsons had a good first year, but so did Leighton Vander Esch in his first year, and he's been good, very good, but he hasn't been an elite linebacker, I would say, since that point. CeeDee Lamb had a great first season. Due for a bit of a comeback? Has Dak Prescott really been the answer that Dallas has been looking for after the Troy Aikman days, after what Tony Romo was? Now, Romo never got to a Super Bowl, never got very far in the playoffs, never got far with Jessica Simpson, but that's another conversation for another day. The question really then is, do you believe firmly that Dallas is going to continue being the class? And Justin made a great point. Michael Gallup didn't have a great rookie, didn't do well after his rookie season. They still paid him $62.5 million over a 5-year deal. So, Jalen Tolbert, who they drafted in the 3rd round, who I was very high on, let's say he performs very well, but you've got that Michael Gallup albatross around your neck. That's going to hurt you in free agency. As much as I love Brian Anger, when you pay a punter $9 million over 3 years, and he's 34, it's not great. So nothing about Dallas screams elite team to me. And for a while, that had been the case where that was good enough because you could get away with being a non-elite team in a division that was subpar at best. Now, you look at everybody else in that division, they've taken steps forward. Dallas has kind of stayed the course in some ways, and they've lost ground in others. Like, I'm sorry, Dante Fowler is not Randy Gregory. That is not an even replacement there. Lyle Collins is gone too. I do not know if I can see Matt Waletzko, who they drafted out of North Dakota, being that guy to be that replacement. I have a lot of question marks here, and I think it's a case where this is going to be the real showcase of just how many holes there are in the Dallas Cowboys dynasty of NFC East championships, because they're not taking it this year. And I'll be honest with you, I would not be surprised if this is a surprisingly bad year in Dallas. I think you could see them being very non-competitive because their schedule does not favor them. Because not only, like I said, you have Tampa Bay, you're playing the NFC North, who we went over aside from Chicago. Those three other teams are very good. And then you've got the AFC South, which, again, Indy's very good. Jacksonville's getting better. Tennessee is what they are. Houston could surprise them. If Houston wins the Battle of Texas, which is going to be on December 11th in Jerry's world, Mike McCarthy's getting fired the next day. I'm sorry, you cannot lose to Houston. But this is a team that could be due for a rough year. So I don't see them winning this division at all.
He might get fired that day. That's a 1:00 game. If they lose that game against the Texans, I think he might get fired that day.
I mean, I standard protocol is you wait a day to kind of let everybody sit with their thoughts and then stew in their own, misery for a bit, and then you go from there. So
I don't think Jerry Jones is waiting. If they're having a bad season, they lose to Houston.
I was going to say Jerry Jones' standard protocol, that doesn't mix. You're right. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that don't mix with Jerry Jones. Standard protocol is not one of them. Plenty of alcohol does. Is it worth asking the questions this season? What are we going to see more of? More Dallas Cowboys wins, or more people claim that they're a secret child of Jerry Jones? What are we going to see more of this season?
I think you're going to see more defections of so-called Cowboys fans. So-called Cowboys bandwagoners are going to defect and say, "I never rooted for them. That wasn't me." No.
Yeah, Dallas. I mean, you bring up the perfect point, Rick, and this is like for all that dominating last season, them winning the division, it really puts them at that disadvantage to start off this year in terms of the schedule that they have. There's those first 6 games. The Giants are the only one where you're going to say for certain, yeah, they're going to win that because they got Tampa, Cincy, Washington, the Rams, defending Super Bowl champs in Los Angeles, and then they have the Eagles in Philly, a much improved Eagles team that we'll get to here in a couple moments.
And then the Lions, Justin.
I got the Lions winning that game.
Me too. Yes.
Unity on this podcast against the Dallas Cowboys. It feels right. And then they have all these various games. It's could be interesting. Even that, I guess it would be week 17 game against the Tennessee Titans. Like, even though I'm down on Tennessee, Derrick Henry could run over that defense for 200 yards.
Yeah, he's healthy.
Yeah,
and again, too, coming out of their bye, they play at Green Bay and at Minnesota.
And we know Aaron Rodgers has a history of, putting some pain on for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
He very much is someone that Dallas Cowboys, like, they tend to, for a while, like Eli Manning, of course, was like one of their boogeymen. Aaron Rodgers is the boogeyman when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys over a good bit here, especially when they've tried to become a contending team. So we'll see where that leads them. So obviously we're down on Dallas. So let's move on to the other teams in the division. We're going alphabetical order based off of cities, ladies and gentlemen. So you know what that means. Next up is New York City, the Big Apple. And we talk about the New York Football Giants. The New York Giants are a interesting team, to say the least. I don't know what Justin's specific affiliations would be, but I know me and Rick have affiliations. I've done a podcast with Giants fans, still very close friends with a Giants fan. Rick is married to a Giants fan and has Giants fans on the other side of the family. So
they're also not here right now. So this is great. This is a great week to do this.
If they listen back to this episode, though, you'll have to watch out.
Okay. Can't read this deep in the archives.
gonna be an unlisted episode. Justin, do you have any Giants fan ties? Like, anyone close to you as a Giants fan?
Yeah, I live in New York. I know a ton of Giants fans. I'm also just picturing like Rick's wife standing behind him and like his father-in-law just behind the camera. Like, so what's the record gonna be, huh?
Well, no. He's upstairs and the wife is out of the bridal shower. So the only one who's gonna tell her is Sienna, but she's all asleep right now, so that's not happening.
So all the stars have aligned for Rick in this case.
They have. They truly have.
So the New York Giants, they finished last in this division, in the previous season in 2021. Big part, of course, was because the offense faltered. You can say whatever you want about any aspect of the team, but the offense was the biggest thing. Kenny Galladay completely underperforming last season for them after getting his big contract. Kadarius Toney, I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think all of us had as many touchdowns last season as Kadarius Toney did. So that tells you all you need to know about how the Giants receiving core did last season, and
twice as many.
Yes,
yeah,
and brings up the question on what will this year look like for Daniel Jones. I believe this is the final year of his rookie deal. They did not pick up his 5th-year option, so this is a make it or break it year for him in his NFL career and what it could potentially look like. I've kind of said in previous episodes my thoughts on like Baker and Sam Darnold, to where I think they've both proven more than enough. I would want them as backup quarterbacks on my team if they don't work out as starters anymore. Daniel Jones, I think the jury's still very much out on him. I don't even know if I want Daniel Jones as a backup quarterback for me, honestly. So we have to enter with this Giants season. We have to very much consider the fact this is make or break for Daniel Jones right now. And let's see what he has to work with here. Offensively, we'll see what happens. I mean, we were talking about health of running backs earlier when it comes to Seattle. It's very much the same here with the New York Football Giants. Ever since his rookie season, Saquon Barkley has not been healthy. He just keeps getting hurt. He is unable to stay out there on the field. He's technically played in double-digit games in both his second and even last season, but he just wasn't effective at all last season, only having 593 rushing yards in 13 games. Now, only 162 attempts. I'm pretty sure he left a couple games early, so you could consider that, but he has just not been the weapon that they've hoped he would be, and he's entering this is 5th-year option year, so you have that. You have a wide receiving core, as I pointed out earlier, with the likes of Kenny Galladay, with Kadarius Toney, who underperformed last season. Darius Slayton is a good threat for this team. They kept Sterling Shepard, which kind of surprised me because I would have figured that they would have released him. You have that. A offensive line that they made significant strides in improving. You got to give them credit. They did add to that offensive line in this past draft with Evan Neal. I think overall there are some pieces there. They also have Mark. This name always messes up. Glowinski, yes. I don't know why I kept adding
Mark Glowinski, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And he, former Indianapolis Colt, he was very much a fixture on the Colts offensive line for a good couple of years, so that was a massive pickup. The Giants offensive line is actually looking pretty good this season, which I think this is, if you're going to give Daniel Jones, if you're going to have faith in him, you need the offensive line. This is the best looking the Giants offensive line has been in his tenure so far as a Giant. So you got to give him credit there. And then defense, they added some pieces, mainly Kayvon Thibodeau there amongst the defensive line. You have a couple various pieces throughout the rest of the lineup in terms of linebackers. Azeez Ojulari is entering year 2, and you hope that he could have a really good year for himself. And then you have a pretty good, at least on paper, defensive back crew, Adoree Jackson, who they picked up off his surprise release from the Tennessee Titans last season. And people wonder why I go at the Tennessee Titans sometimes. Xavier McKinney and Julian Love are both quality guys. Like, there are good pieces throughout this team. The question is it enough? Can they get it together? And now this season, they have a new coach to work with. Brian Daboll, former offensive mind of the Buffalo Bills, is going to be the head coach, and he's going to try to get the best out of Daniel Jones that he can. We'll see what happens there. Rick, laid out the Giants lineup for you there. What should we expect from them in 2022? Because we're talking about enigmas here. This might be I know we've had our jokes about Washington throughout the podcast. We mentioned the Eagles here. Giants might be the most unknown enigma in this entire division.
Well, let me start off by saying it this way. You remember back when we used to do basketball games in our college days, and either teams or both teams would do a 5-person substitution or even a 4-person substitution. Remember what I used to call it? Called it a line change. As a joke, because it was basketball, not hockey, right? In lacrosse, there's a term called yard sale, which means when you check the lacrosse stick out of somebody's hands completely. The reason why I'm bringing both of them up is because, basically speaking, the Giants offseason has been both a line change and a yard sale. 13 coaches got fired from this New York Giants team, and 1 resigned. A couple of others accepted jobs in the college ranks, and Patrick Graham went to be the Raiders' D coordinator. This is an entirely new coaching staff, an entirely new mindset, an entirely new philosophy. Brian Daboll's coming in as the Bills' O coordinator who knows how to make an offense run. He brought with him Mike Kafka, the greatest Northwestern quarterback of all time, who then was their quarterback coach. So he's now the new O coordinator. The Giants got Wink Martindale, who we'll see if he's past his prime as the Ravens D coordinator, but it starts with that quarterback. And the biggest thing that the Giants did for me this season was they signed Tyrod Taylor to a 2-year contract. You've now given Daniel Jones no excuse because Tyrod Taylor is a starting quarterback who, if it wasn't for the fact that a Chargers trainer punctured his lung, we wouldn't have had Justin Herbert. Tyrod Taylor is menacing, chomping at the bit. When Daniel Jones messes up, he will be on the field. That's why they didn't give Daniel Jones the option back. This Giants team has some good pieces to it. I love what they did in the draft. Not you, Wendell Robinson. You get to the back of the line. I don't know what the heck that was. But Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal were solid selections. I even think, going into the later rounds, Micah McFadden was an excellent linebacking pickup for them from Indiana because they have, as you mentioned, Azeez Ojulari, who we did talk about a little bit in one of our earlier episodes as like a potential step forward candidate. This team is just an absolute enigma. They can, with the talent they have, win 9 games. But they could also, with the talent that they have and the circumstances that they have going their way, be a top 5 pick next year. It's just, it all stems from the quarterback. It all stems from Daniel Jones. He has to either make this season his, kind of like Jared Goff, or he's gone. And the Giants are looking for a brand new quarterback next year to learn under Tyrod Taylor to start in 2024. And I hate to say it like that because it's not what you want. But this is a team that needs to really figure things out quickly. And one other person that's getting overlooked here, but who really needs to make a big step forward is Saquon Barkley. You got to be healthy. Saquon has got to be healthy because otherwise, then that number 2 pick is looking like a bust. And look, all accounts, Saquon Barkley is a great ambassador for the game. That's nice. So is David Wilson. He was gone for 2 years. You're a great ambassador. That's wonderful, but it's not going to help you get 1,000 yards on the football field. It just means, oh, you're a nice guy. It means nothing. This is a team that needs to figure things out. They have, I think, a good coaching core in place, finally, because Ben McAdoo was a joke. He was a baby wearing a mustache. Pat Shurmur was nonsense because I thought they were going to draft his son to be the quarterback, which would have been hilarious. And Joe Judge never should have been a head coach at all. I'm going to say it. Special teams coaches don't deserve to be head coaches in this league. They don't. It's not like to go from special teams to a head coaching job, that pathway doesn't work.
Wasn't John Harbaugh a special teams guy before he became head coach?
I thought he went to be a coordinator somewhere else.
A lot of these guys bounce around. They're coordinators, special teams coordinators, but then they'll do other things.
That's what I mean. Is that if you're going to be a special teams guy, but then eventually head coach, jump to defense or jump to offense next. There's a pathway to follow, and I get it. It was a trendy hire at the time, but look at what happened. The Giants went nowhere in the 2 years that he was a head coach. Brian Daboll can get them somewhere, but there's not a lot of confidence I think I have in this team going forward.
Fair. More than fair. And I think it really does come down to Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley living up to their pedigree in some way, shape, or form. It's on that offense to take that step with Brian Daboll being there. Now it's on Daniel Jones to really improve as a passer and take that leap. It's on Saquon Barkley to finally be healthy. It's on Kenny Golladay to catch the football this season. It's on Kadarius Toney to whatever issues he's been having, because we've seen various reports from him and his camp throughout the season. Look, I'm all for players and player empowerment and this new thing that's been happening in sports last season. I'm for it if you've earned it. You haven't earned a single thing in this league, Kadarius Toney. You haven't caught a touchdown yet. So swallow your pride, get over yourself, please, and start playing and play for this team. Catch some touchdowns, catch the football, and then you can talk a little bit more, and then you can say about how good you are. And maybe just maybe you could be in the echelon of Chase Claypool. Who knows? Chase Claypool, Best gag of the show.
I just want to give you a quick little update right now from my side. Sienna is sleep barking, so clearly I said something to offend her about the Giants, and she's sleep barking at me. So that's what's happening at the moment.
Good job. Even when she's asleep, you can't escape it.
Exactly. No, but you're right. You're right. This is now also an era of wide receivers who are young, who are talented, and who have such a big head on their shoulders that you're not proving yourself. Kadarius Toney was one. Chase Claypool was another. Our favorite guy, Robbie Anderson, I think, was another guy.
And the funny thing is, Kadarius Toney is the least accomplished of those. Like when we talk about wide receivers and like if they have some quote unquote diva-ish tendencies, like there are a lot of guys that deserve to have those tendencies way more than Kadarius Toney, and don't act like that. Like for the love of everything, man.
If Cooper Kupp just decided to drive his car to Rodeo Drive and block the street and walk down saying, "I'm Cooper Kupp," I would say, yeah, you've earned that.
Yeah, Super Bowl MVP.
You've earned that.
He earned it. And we know he's not going to do it. Even if AJ Brown wanted to do that, we'd understand it because you're AJ Brown. You're a physical freak of nature, but he doesn't do it. Like, just I really don't understand it when it comes to certain receivers. And just I don't think he's necessarily acting like a diva. Like, I get it. I wouldn't like the fact that Daniel Jones is throwing me the football either. But Odell had earned the right when Eli was still there. He earned the right to complain about Eli because numbers-wise, everything from touchdown interception rate, yards, completion percentage, everything was up when Odell was on the field. And then when Odell was off the field, it was all down for Eli Manning. Odell earned the right to say, I don't want to be here anymore, and I want to try to find a better situation. Then he went to Cleveland, and then I think he kind of learned some things. But Kadarius Toney, like, you don't have that right to do that. Like, even for all I've said about Daniel Jones, you don't have the. You didn't catch a touchdown last season. Catch a touchdown, and then we can talk. So, Justin, as me and Rick attack the Giants wide receiving core, what are your thoughts about the Giants? Of course, we were all critical about the Cowboys. I think it's a very similar thing here when it comes to the Giants. It's just, 2022, this could be, I think this is the foundational year for them because I always try to look at a team and when they hire new, because they also have the new GM, by the way, that brought in Brian Daboll on his coaching staff. So I think this is the establishing year for them. I think I'm not putting a timeline on any of these guys right now because I think this season is just for them to figure things out because this is not their quarterback. This is not their receiving core that they want. These aren't guys that they brought in. So what are your thoughts for the Giants this season?
I really love the moves the Giants made in the offseason. I love the draft picks. I think they've made some solid signings. But you're right. These are not the guys that they expect to be here the year later, even a year later. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough year. Things are going to get worse before they get better for the Giants fans. You just got to, Giants fans, let me give you a message. Don't panic year one. All right. If Brian Daboll has goes 5-12 year one, don't expect results like that. Like, you should expect him to go 5-12. They're not going to have the toughest schedule, but they're not going to have an easy schedule either. These are still all professional football teams in the National Football League, and the Giants are not going to be able to put everything together every game in his first year as a head coach. It's just not going to happen. So as far as the Giants' schedule this year, I expect them to probably be last place in their division. I do expect Saquon to be healthy this year, and I hope he takes a step forward. That offensive line has been revamped. They're going to give him the ball a ton. But I don't see it. Even if they put Tyrod Taylor in, I mean, Rick, I get that you think he's a starting quarterback in the league, but people forget that tenure that he had in Cleveland when he was just horrendous and ended up getting benched against the Jets to bring in Baker Mayfield. He's got some skills. He's getting a lot older. It's been a long time since he's been a starter in the league. And even if they bring him in, I really don't expect much in terms of results.
I think he's better than Mike Glennon, though.
I mean, what are we arguing here?
No, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, in regards to backup quarterbacks, I think he's better than Mike Glennon.
Yeah, I would take Tyrod as a backup. He's not a starter. I don't think he's going to be any. Let's say he started the whole season. I still don't expect him to get more than 5 or 6 wins this year. It's just going to be a rough year. Yeah, their defense might be a little improved, but their offensive line might be a little improved. But I don't expect a ton out of Daniel Jones. Saquon's got to stay healthy, and their best players are young. They're going to make mistakes. It's on the coaching staff, but there's only so much coaching staff can do because they're not on the field. So I don't expect them to win. I think that their division got a lot tougher. I think all three teams in their division have gotten better, and they're kind of the clear um, fourth place team to me in the league, at least this year. I do love the moves they made. I think if they could build on the moves they made next year, then maybe we're talking about having a solid step forward, 8, 9 wins. But I don't see it this year.
And also, I think at the end of it, and even though like Dayball and management have said like all the right things, let's be real. A year from now, I think you said it, Justin. A year from now, the top 4 names on this offensive core right now are Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Galladay, and even he's technically not the number 2 receiver, but just because he was a first round pick last year, let me just say him, Kadarius Toney. It's a likely scenario where all 4 of them are going to be gone by the end of this season. Like they could all not be on the team anymore.
Absolutely.
Like
Cuts, trades. I expect the Giants to make moves. So, and I believe 1 or 2 of those contracts are up. So, yeah, they're revamping their offensive line. They expect to have at least 1 high draft pick next year because I believe they still have the Chicago Bears pick next year.
I think that was just this year. I think that was just
this year and the year before.
Yeah.
All right. Well, either way, I expect the Giants to have a high pick next year. I expect them to do a lot of moving. I think that they have some later assets as well. They could be a candidate to even trade up in the offseason this year. So we'll see. Maybe they're in the market for another quarterback next year. Maybe they're making moves and trying to build that offense from scratch. But they got a lot of cap headaches to clear out. They got a lot of players that aren't necessarily the answer there, and you're going to see a lot of struggles this year.
I think the interesting thing about the Giants, and this is my last note for them, is the fact that this is a team that is so close to that cap ceiling, but they're not good. And when you are spending a lot, but you're not a good team,
the highest paid wide receiver room in the league.
Yeah, and not a room that's going to produce a lot. They're just not. I mean, I hope all the best for those guys, especially like Darius Slayton, because I think and Sterling Shepard, because Sterling Shepard is the consummate professional of that room, and Darius Slayton has actually shown some flashes. I think like Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney being there, like it forced it because of the contract and the draft status. I think it forces them to maybe focus on them. But Darius Slayton's a really good receiver, and I hope for his sake he has a good season this year. Just for him, but yeah, it's not looking pretty for the Giants for 2022. I think that's more than a fair assessment. Moving on from them, unless we have any last notes about them, I don't think there's much more to say. Yeah, I agree. So, moving on from the Giants, we go a hop, skip, and a jump away to a state very close to New York, and we have Pennsylvania, and we have the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the teams that someone on this podcast has very pushed heavily on their chances of winning this division. The Philadelphia Eagles with a we know end of last season, the Eagles went on a run. They tore through the end of their season, minus the Cowboys game. But they won a lot of games at the end of last season to surprisingly make the playoffs in a wild card game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They scored a couple touchdowns in the game, but we know Tampa was going to beat them. But it was a learning experience. It was a big year for Jalen Hurts and his development and what he could potentially do. It was a big year 1, I believe it was, for Nick Sirianni. And from his opening press conference to making the playoffs in his first season, what a shock that was, considering like if you just base it off of how you come off in press conferences and pressers, it was looking bad. Like he had a very weird opening press conference.
The 2 opening press conferences that were made fun of the most last year are actually the 2 head coaches now that everyone is talking about the most.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell biting kneecaps and Nick Sirianni, who is, again, just flat out weird. But
who we're going to have complex offenses, but it's going to be simple for us and complex and, confusing the opposing defenses. What a concept. But they made the playoffs last season, and it really inspired this team to go out there and make some changes. And we know what the biggest change on this team was in the offseason. It was drafting Carson Strong in this past draft. But the reality, of course, it was the draft day trade that they made to add A.J. Brown to a wide receiving core that, aside from Devontae Smith, who had I think kind of, I don't want to say overperformed, but I think a lot of people, like, they had questions because he's, 112 pounds soaking wet or whatever that they were saying about him. Not 112, but like he was rail thin. And you have, of course, Jalen Reagor, who is the new Nelson Aguilar in Philadelphia. Aside from that, there wasn't really much there. So you add A.J. Brown there to give a bump to that wide receiving core. You have Dallas Goedert as your number one tight end. That's not a bad number one tight end, to say the very least. He might be I'm trying to just think here from the teams that we discussed so far. I think you could argue he might be the best tight end in the division. Like, I know Dalton Schultz had last season, but we've seen a little bit more from Dallas Goedert consistently over the last couple of years. So you have him. You have what has always been a pretty rock solid offensive line. You got guys like them staying healthy. Andre Dillard and Lane Johnson are amazing bookend tackles for this team to have. Jason Kelsey, the consummate veteran, it feels like he's been there for a very, very long time, which, to be fair, he has been. But he's been a foundational piece along the offensive line. And then you have the defense, who in cases performed really well last season. Fletcher Cox, who they reworked his deal. You got a veteran there in Brendan Graham. Derek Barnett, who they were able to retain, which kind of shocked me because I actually thought he would have left the team. You have a decent enough linebacking core, and then they actually added Hassan Reddick in the offseason to help with the pass rush. You have a young Kazir White there. They got James Bradbury, who he parted ways with the Giants, so they have him now. There are some pieces here, and we know, like I said, somebody on this panel has the Eagles winning this division this season and has made that clear before. So, Justin, your thoughts on the Eagles for 2022 and why Fly Eagles Fly are going to fly all the way to the divisional title of the NFC East?
Look, they were a pretty good team last year. They surprised a lot of people. Jalen Hurts took a step forward, I think. He had a good year. And I think they really addressed some of their big needs in the offseason. They had some needs at receiver. They addressed. They went out and got A.J. Brown. They had some needs on defense. They needed help. They went out. They drafted that young kid out of Georgia to clog up the middle of the line. They went out and they signed James Bradbury to help with the secondary. So there's no reason that they should not take that step forward again this year and win in a weaker division. And their schedule is really not all that hard. Look at their first 4 games. They play the Lions in Detroit, the Vikings at home, the Commanders in Washington, and the Jaguars. All teams that I do think made a very positive step forward, and I think that all 4 will be close games. But it's not unheard of for the Eagles to start 4-0 this year. They should have a relatively solid chance to get a really early lead in this division. And then their schedule, while, like I said, it picks up a little bit, it doesn't get that much tougher. They still play the Texans. They still play the Commanders again. They still play the Giants. They still play the Bears. They have a lot of games where they really should not, ever give up this lead. So I have them winning the division this year. I think that they're going to be a really, really strong team in the NFC East. Probably a 4 seed, maybe a 3 seed. I don't expect them to win a ton of games, but it's not unheard. I don't think it's unheard of for them to expect to have double-digit wins this year, which is something that I don't have for any other team in this division.
Ooh, a little teaser there for the end of the episode when it comes to it. So, Rick, obviously you take exception to the fact that he has the Lions and the Washington Commanders losing. So, you'll get your Commanders time here in a few moments. But, your thoughts on the Eagles here. Let me say this, because we know we were saving the best for last for a reason. There's a reason why Sandoval said, let's go in alphabetical order based off the cities. There may or may not have been influenced by Rick. But do you think, do you have the Eagles as the team most likely to take on Washington for the division crown this year?
Yeah, I for all the reasons that Justin has said, I agree that Philadelphia to me is probably going to be that number 2 team in the NFC East. My one qualm is Jalen Hurts, because I think that Jalen Hurts is in the mold of the Cam Newtons and the dual option quarterbacks, because last year, he only threw for 16 touchdowns, but he also ran for 10. Now, was that a product of not having Miles Sanders or Boston Scott for a lot of the time, or was that a product of him calling his own number on a number of the plays? Maybe under Nick Sirianni, he got a lot more proven. The thing is that this year, they're going to ask Jalen Hurts to throw the ball more, because you've got A.J. Brown now in that locker room, and because it adds to that strong group of wide receivers that are there, and the tight end room with Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra, who are both there. So that, to me, is where you could see more of Jalen Hurts making those mistakes, those seminal. I know he's not a rookie anymore, but he's still technically a rookie in certain ways. I mean, he's only thrown 580 passes in his 2 years in the NFL. I would think that by this point, you'd probably be at maybe 750 or 800. You'd have more thrown that way. And again, and that's just me saying that. So I think this could be a case where Jalen Hurts could cost the Eagles a few games here or there just because of taking that extra chance. And look, you'd love to see it. You'd love to see the Eagles try and go for bigger plays. But, I mean, that could be where the problem lies. And I think the other issue, too, is that their offensive line's a little on the older side for me. I look at Lane Johnson and I look at Jason Kelsey, and I say to myself, well, Cam Jurgens isn't ready yet to become the center. So you have one more year of Jason Kelsey. I know, but he's a rookie. So he's going to learn one year under Jason Kelsey. Lane Johnson's 32, but can Lane Johnson stay on the field enough? And the tackles that they have after him don't inspire me as much to protect that blind side. Like Andre Dillard, yeah, okay. Jack Driscoll, yeah. Like any guy that went to UMass to play football has already got a red flag in my book. Because he went to a horrible school to play football. They were terrible. UMass college football is horrible. It's the worst program in the NCAA. But regardless,
hold on, real quick. I can't wait for 2 to 3 years from now when the Jets make a trade with a team and get their first round pick and get like the 7th overall pick, and there's a player from UMass slotted to go in the 7th overall pick. I can't wait for that.
No, Jerk.
You set yourself up now.
Jerk. The Jets did that. They drafted a kid from UMass. Justin, you know who it was.
Justin, who was it?
Vlad Dukas.
Oh, I remember that.
That's the reaction that we all knew was going to happen when I said Vlad Dukas. That's the reaction. That tells you something. I mean, look. Granted,
I had it so well blocked, Rick. You burst open that dam.
So far in the ether. But back to the Eagles. I do think this is going to be a good team. My thing is, I don't know if I believe the double-digit win hype. I think this is a 9-8 team again. Maybe 9-7-1. I think the play of Jalen Hurts is going to be an issue where it comes down to the fact that this is a team that is going to lose a game here or there because of his inability to make the plays that are necessary with this higher-powered offense of wide receivers that demands the ball more. I think he's going to be rushed. And I think the O-line took a step back because they're older. I think it's going to be – they're a good team. But are they an NFC East champion team? Jury's going to be out on that. I think November 14th is going to be a big game for them to try and beat Washington at their home site. And is that a Monday night game? That's a Monday night game, yeah. That's going to be a big one. Because, yeah, I mean, the second half of their schedule, once you get past Green Bay and Tennessee, you're at the Giants, you're at Chicago, you're at Dallas, you host New Orleans, and then you host the Giants again. I mean, the Dallas and New Orleans games, look, this is a division that, like I said, it cannibalizes on itself quite frequently. I think you could see Dallas kind of sneak one from Philadelphia. The Giants maybe sneak one from Philadelphia if the corners if Xavier McKinney has Jalen Hurts' number. I think it's a possibility. And listen, God forbid we need to have Carson Strong get into the mix here if Jalen Hurts gets hurt, no pun intended, or if there's a little bit of Minshew magic in the offing. I think it's only worse for Philadelphia. I think Jalen Hurts is a mid to lower tier QB1 in this league, and I think the drop off from him down to Minshew is so far that you're praying that Hurts doesn't get hurt because you do not have a good enough quarterback to salvage the season. God forbid something happens to him.
Fair. Very, very, very fair points. And I think my thing with the Eagles, I think what you said, and this is kind of semi-comparable to the Giants where it's based off the offense. I think we're going to see this season who Jalen Hurts is going to be for his career as a starter. And we're going to see how big of an impact he can potentially make here. I think that's ultimately what this season is going to be for the Philadelphia Eagles. They did a really good job of getting him a little bit of help, but at the same time, like now it's on him. And I'm like, for me with Jalen Hurts, it's tough because I like the kid, I really do. But at the same time, I've had my questions about him, and I don't know if he can be that guy. I have a lot of questions about him. I don't know if he could be the guy for this Philadelphia Eagles team.
Justin, you had a high point when you talked about the Eagles with double-digit wins. Do you think that Jalen Hurts is the answer, or do you think that they're going to be in the market for another quarterback some point down the line?
I think Jalen Hurts is better than people give him credit for. I'm not sure that they stick with him, but I think that for what he's had to deal with, he's done pretty well. You're right; he hasn't had a ton of production with his arm, but he also was throwing passes to Jalen Rieger and JJ Arcega Whiteside. I mean, Devontae Smith couldn't be his only target, and when he forced the ball to Devontae Smith, he had a great year. Devontae Smith had a really good rookie season, but that was his only good receiver. And you're right; they had some offensive line woes this year. They tried to address it in free agency and in the draft, but they didn't necessarily get it all done. That being said, they have an easier schedule. Like I said, I think that they're going to benefit from playing some of the bottom half of the league this year. They're in an easy division. They should take at least 3 divisional games, in my opinion, out of the 6. So if they can have a winning record in their division and go like look at last year. The Dallas Cowboys were 6-0 and 6-5 outside their division. So if they win 4 of 6 and go 6-5, and they're 10-7, double-digit wins, and might be realistically enough to win a game in a weak division.
I'm gonna make a bold prediction. I'm gonna make a very bold prediction. I think no matter where Philadelphia finishes this year, they're taking a quarterback in the first round of next year's draft.
It's not that bold. They could very easily do that. Like I said, Jalen Hurts might not be the answer in their mind. Remember, this is a new regime. Also, this is a team that did not take Jalen Hurts out of the draft. If he doesn't start like blow up this year, if he doesn't have double digit, over 20 touchdowns and 4,000 yards, even if they win 9-10 games, it's not unheard of for them to draft a quarterback next year in a strong draft, especially depending on where their draft pick is.
Well, I mean,
they're a quick first round out, and they end up with the 22nd pick, and there's quarterback number 5 out of the top 6 quarterbacks that are supposedly pretty good last year. It's not unheard of for them to go take a stab at it.
That's the thing. I think Philadelphia, it might be a surprise because if they do win the division and let's say they win a first round playoff game and then they lose in the divisional round and they're maybe picking 24, 25, just because of how deep the quarterback class is, I think that's going to be the first trend, but it's not what they need. I think you made a good point, and I agree with you on this. They did not really address the offensive line to my liking at all in offseason. I really don't think they did anything that is special to me. I think it's a matter of they're trusting the guys that they have. They're trusting their hands to save Jalen Hurts. And again, Lane Johnson gets hurt, Jason Kelce gets hurt. Who's backing them up? You got a rookie in Cam Jurgens, who was a great center in college, but who's going to probably be swallowed up whole in this crazy. Even like Chicago, all it takes is one Roquan Smith blitz up the middle to get past the center to Jalen Hurts, and he could be done. So, it's just a matter of they didn't shore up the things that they needed to shore up. Did they make the moves to electrify the offense? Yes, but I don't know. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, is that they got better in certain places, but there's also still very much areas on this team that they need to address. And it's going to end up being the quarterback. And I feel like this has been a point with this division in the past, is who's the quarterback in this division that you're placing your trust in the most? And that's going to continue to be a question. Can you trust Daniel Jones to be good in the final year of his deal? Can you trust Jalen Hurts to take that leap? Can you trust any quarterback on the Washington Commanders to lead this team to the promised land this season?
How dare you, sir?
The last team that we're going to talk about here before we get to our overall division predictions is the Washington Commanders. The hat returns. They added Carson Wentz to this now. I don't want to call it stack because I feel like I'm giving it more positive connotation than it deserves. But let's just say crowded quarterback room. You have Carson Wentz, you have Taylor Heineke, and you have Sam Howell there, to say the very least. Also worth noting, Cole Kelly. With the Washington Commanders, it's a very interesting situation. Riverboat Ron Rivera being there, they've had a good year with him before, but now it's kind of getting to the point where, is it bordering on stagnation on what this team could be? I think is a question in a lot of people's minds, especially because that defense that I myself, actually, I picked the Washington football team to win the division last season, and they very vehemently failed me. And part of it was because the defense I thought was going to take that step up last season. They just did not. In fact, they regressed in a lot of different ways. And I kind of get the idea that their whole thing is maybe they need the quarterback because, of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick was not able to play for them last season. Taylor Heineke, let's call a spade here. He's a really good backup quarterback. He is not a starting quarterback in this league. And I think that's why they went after Carson Wentz. Now, it's a very talented receiving room. I will say, I don't think this is a hot take. I think all around, I think this might be the most talented wide receiving core in this division. You have the number one wide receiver in Scary Terry McLaurin. You have a jack of all trades who could do some jet sweeps and runs and specialties in Curtis Samuel. You have Antonio Gandy Golden, who I think could have a really good year. You have Diami Brown out of UNC before. For as much maligned as the pick was, Jahan Dotson, like it's a crowded receiving core, but I think Jahan Dotson, of course, he's going to try. There's depth there. I think they have. Don't
forget the hottest name right now in the NFL rumor mills, Dax Milne.
Him too. You have a very deep and stacked wide receiving room in Washington. In all seriousness, like I'm not even joking around. I really love that core of names there. I think you have a pretty good offensive line. I think there are some pieces there that you could obviously work with. They added Trey Turner there. They drafted Chris Paul. There's that. And they drafted former Jacksonville Jaguar and former Carolina Panther They signed Andrew Norwell, former Jaguar and Panther. So played with all the big cat teams. Now he's a commander. Good for him. And then you have that defense. That defense is still extremely talented. You still have Montez Sweat there. You still have the guy Chase Young, who's supposed to be the franchise center stone there. You have Jonathan Allen there on that team. They drafted Fedarian Mathis there for depth. They have Deron Payne. You have good pieces there, linebacking core. You have Jamin Davis, who you hope can really continue to play well on that team. And you have a pretty solid defensive back crew. I love Kendall Fuller as a cornerback. I love him as their number one corner. I think William Jackson III is not a bad shout at all. And you have a decent, not great. I actually would have preferred if they would have attacked this position way more in the offseason, but a decent safety crew there. It's a lot of good in Washington, I think. I think to give them their credit, I think there's a lot of good there, but there's good and there's great. And what part of this team can you say is going to be great aside from the defense? Aside from the defensive line, let me say that. Aside from the defensive line, what from this team is going to help push them over the edge to be the number one team in the division? I think that's the number one thing. So, Rick, Justin got first crack at his pick. You get first crack with yours. Sell us on the Washington Commanders / Communists / football team / reskins for the 2022 season.
2 words. Chase Young. Look, Chase Young is probably maybe the most talented and freakish defensive lineman in this division. And we didn't see a full season from him last year, and that's what hurt the Washington football team, now the Commanders, last year, is that he was done in week 9. If they had him for a full season, they probably would have won the division or maybe have gotten closer to it, I think. The fact of the matter is that this is a team that just has something special about them and intangible. It's a prove-it year for Carson Wentz, sure. I love Taylor Heineke as much as the next guy. Carson Wentz is going to be their starter week 1. So be it. J.D. McKissick is an absolute phenomenal running back. So is Antonio Gibson. You talk about two-headed guys, not to mention the fact they drafted Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama to really head up that running back core. That's going to be a solid room there. I think the one question mark that I have on offense with this team is their tight end, because you have a converted quarterback in Logan Thomas and John Bates, who caught his first NFL touchdown, fumbled it away, and recovered the fumble for his first NFL touchdown. So, I mean, there's that too. Look, I'm not going to say that Washington's going to be a great team. And I'm not going to say 17-0 when they win the Super Bowl. That was Detroit last week. I'm just kidding. It wasn't them either. But the fact of the matter for me is that I look at what this team has accomplished and I look at where they are. And I think that the moves, the pieces are in place. One draft pick that they made that you didn't mention that I will speak highly about, Percy Butler, free safety out of Louisiana Lafayette. Billy Napier, who was the head coach of the Raging Cajuns at the time, did something with that program that was magical. He turned those players into stars. Percy Butler was a star in college. He's a ball hawk safety, no-nonsense player, drafted in the 4th round this year. And again, you're talking about a guy who played in the Sun Belt. So for a guy who played in the Sun Belt, he's just come on strong. I like where this team is. I think Ron Rivera is the right guy in this spot. I think that this is an excellent group. And you mentioned all his wide receiver core. I think this is a good team. I really, truly do. And I think for my money, they're a team that's going to surprise you and win some games here and there. I think, I look at their schedule, nothing about it really scares me. They're going to lose the games they're going to lose. We all know that. But if you go towards the end of the year, they also have a very late bye. Now that could help them or it could hurt them. I think the later your bye, the more likely it is that you could have some injuries or some nagging injuries come on. But it could also make a team stronger because you're constantly playing for 14 weeks in a row, and then you get a week off. Coming out of that, they play the Giants at home. They go to San Francisco, and we don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be. Then they host Cleveland, which, again, Deshaun Watson may be back, may not be back. Who knows? He might have gotten hurt again. Who knows? And then it's Dallas. That ending game against Dallas, for my money, will be the coronation of the Washington Commanders as the NFC East champions. Kind of like how last year Cincinnati had that coronation at the end of the season. It came down to that very last game, and they still made it so that they were the team that won that AFC North. It's the same concept here. It's the same exact deal where the coronation will be because of that fact that Washington's just that good of a team, I think. And again, it may be me being, high and mighty, rah, let's go commies, but at the same time, you can't honestly tell me that Dallas or the Giants are going to win this division. So I think it's a two-horse race. And I'm picking one with better colors.
Yep. So. Yeah, I do like red more than green, honestly, to be fair. Justin, your thoughts on the Washington football team / reskin / Commanders / no longer racial slurs. Rick brings up a lot of good points. I the hat on the dog. Oh man, that's adorable. She takes off the hat. Perfect time.
She's tired. Let her sleep.
Yeah, to be fair. Justin, your thoughts on the Commanders going into 2022? With my first initial question for you, and then you take it from there. Carson Wentz. I think I was talking about quarterbacks. I think he's going to be the big thing. What from Carson Wentz do you think is going to help this team take that next step this season? Is Carson Wentz, can he finally be the guy to help get a team over the hump?
I think last year, you know what? He's got the tools, but I don't necessarily know if he's got the mental fortitude after last year. It was a rough one. They had a rough time. And now he's got to play his own former team that drafted him twice a year. And they're an up-and-coming team. He's got to play Dallas twice a year. They're still a good team in the National Football League. I expect them to have a winning record this year. And they don't have the easiest schedule. They play the 49ers. They play the Browns late in the year, which we would assume is going to be a full-strength Browns team at this point. They play the NFC North, which we just discussed has 3 teams that should be really competitive this year. Inside their division, I don't see them stealing those games that I see the Eagles stealing. I don't see them winning 4 out of 6, maybe more like 2 out of 6. Because again, the Eagles are strong, the Cowboys are strong. So it's not necessarily a Ron Rivera thing. I do think that they have a much better defense than what they showed last year, and they should, strike fear into the opposing teams. But I don't necessarily know if they have the tools to get that ball to the receiving core. I think their offensive line has gotten worse. Their running game is strong when healthy, but how often has it been healthy in the last few years? So I don't really see them doing. I think that they're more third in the division in my league. I think that the Cowboys and the Eagles is the real race here and not the Commanders. They could be a surprise team. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's possible Carson Wentz really steps up. He throws a lot of touchdowns this year, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to lose games that they really need, like games to the Vikings and the Lions and the 49ers and these second and third place teams in their divisions that, should be games that you could steal, and they're not gonna come out with it. So, to me, I think it's gonna be another rough year in Washington, and it could be the end of Ron Rivera's tenure there because he's been there a long time.
Those are my thoughts. All things considered, as now Sandoval dons the hat as a mysterious arm has gotten into the studio to give him the hat for a moment. I think that's my kind of thing, because I feel like Ron Rivera, for all the good that he's done for that organization, it's now getting to the point where
they haven't succeeded enough.
Yeah,
there's not enough wins to keep a guy there that long.
Because even like
a great coach, I think he's done wonders with that organization.
Right,
I mean, they were a toxic mess when he got there.
Yeah,
and I think that they're better than when he arrived. But that being said, I don't think that they haven't had any success.
That's not true. They won a division. I get it. They were 7-9, but they didn't.
I was about to say they were below 500, man. Like, come on.
Below 500 and won a division win.
But a division win is still a division win.
And they've been downhill since then.
That was also in the COVID year. Yeah, but that's only 2 seasons.
Are you using COVID year as a benefit?
No, I'm saying look at what Washington did to overcome the odds in a year where the odds were overcome by the rest of the world as whole. And the fact of the matter for me is that, like, look, I know we said Joe Judge 2 seasons. I know we said Pat Shermer 2 seasons. Ron Rivera still won 7 games each year. It's not like he only won 2, like Adam Gase. You know, I think.
How many years has he been there?
This is his 3rd season.
This is 3rd season.
This is only his 3rd season?
Yeah.
He was still in Carolina in 2019. They fired him.
It feels like longer.
I'll give you the division win. You have a coach that goes 7-10 3 years in a row and has 1 division win. Is he keeping his job?
Different divisions, different aspects, different.
Doesn't matter what division he's in. He's had a losing record 3 years in a row. They have not improved. They're 7-10 year after year after year.
Well, not this year.
We'll see.
I love it. I love it. I think I think for the most part we definitely are in. Everything's in play in this division in regards to these 2 teams. I think for the most part, a lot of people will say it's going to be between these 2 teams. I think plenty of people will still have the Cowboys in the conversation because Cowboys going to Cowboy. I'm sure when like ESPN and Bleacher Report. Can't even say their name right. I think when Bleacher Report, releases their rankings as well, I think like I wouldn't be surprised if they still have the Cowboys to the top of that division because they got to keep them up there. It's the status quo. But I think these are 2 teams that can really make a run at things and can win this division. I think it's all about the quarterback, and I think that is probably why some people still give an edge to Dallas, because at the end of the day, between Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, and Jalen Hurts, which quarterback are you trusting the most to get you out of a situation? I think a lot of people are still going to trust Dak Prescott more than those other 2 guys, to say the very least. I think that's what ultimately comes down to. So, division predictions, boys. I don't know who to start with. Sandoval, we haven't had him on the whole time, so we're not going to start with Sandoval. So, Rick, you're the next one. Your 2022 NFC East predictions.
Okay, well, 1 second. Gotta get my hat. Okay, here we go.
I thought he was going to show us a whiteboard. I was
waiting for this. I thought there was like a little algorithm over here, but no. Pull it out from the den of doom, if you will. No. Yes. Okay. This one's going to hurt. But Giants 5-12. And I think this is Daniel Jones' last year. I think they draft a quarterback next year. I really do. Because I think Brian Daboll's going to the offense is going to improve, but I think Daniel Jones is just going to cost them too many games to really ruin any chances for them. So Giants 5-12, Dallas 6-11. I do not think the Cowboys are going to be in a position to defend the title, and I think this is going to be a down year for them because I just think they've lost too many pieces and they didn't fix any of the problems that were there. So I think Dallas, like I said, 6-11. I think it's rough for them. This is my first quirky pick. Philadelphia goes 9-7-1.
Who's a tie?
Washington is 10-6-1 and wins the division. So let me ties happen.
Please set the stage.
we don't really predict them a whole heck of a lot, but at the same
Which game?
time,
In Philly or in Washington?
in Philly, the ESPN game is going to be a tie, and Philadelphia is going to riot. I think so. Look, I think, like I said, I think that there's conversation and questions really about Jalen Hurts that are going to have to be answered. Like this is a big year for him. He's now got that wide receiver core, that 1 and that 2 option in Devontae Smith and in AJ Brown, along with Dallas Goedert as a tight end. But will it work for him? Will throwing the ball 40, 45 times a game be a factor for Hurts? Or will they still try and run his normal offense and piss AJ Brown off? That's going to be the big question mark there. So I think Washington, for me, Maurice Moton of Bleacher Report, as you mentioned, Bleacher Report, had this to say. Led by a strong defensive line with Chase Young, who's recovering from a torn ACL, the Commanders could finish number 1 in a division that's been in flux at the top for nearly 2 decades. Guys, this is the most unpredictable division in all of football because every year it seems like there's a different winner. And so this year, it's the perfect maelstrom of guys coming in, the door hitting everybody on the butt on the way out, that Washington, with a full heel of Chase Young, with a Terry McLaurin who will get the ball thrown to him by Carson Wentzicky or whoever decides to be the quarterback. Mesh them up. I think Washington's in a good spot. Now, do I see a first-round exit again? You'll have to wait and see for that when that happens. But it's a possibility that I think, this could be a good year. And again, it's only his 3rd year. But Ron Rivera, if you're going to tell me that, yeah, you've won 10 games once, but you won the division twice, give me Washington all day, baby.
I mean, if they do win 10 games, I mean, that obviously guarantees him his job.
Winning 10 games and winning the division twice, you keep that coach for sure.
Absolutely.
Winning a division and going 7-10 3 times is it's grounds for firing, in my opinion.
Well, again, I mean, let's see who the owner is at the end of the season.
Well, that's a different question.
That's a whole different question for another day. Yes.
That'll be interesting. We will have an episode, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, probably after we finish all this. We will have an episode detailing the Washington football team. I know I don't want to say we've ignored them, but like there have been other things that we've planned. We'll have a little bit of a breakdown because, the least surprising thing of the offseason is Congress trying to bring in Daniel Snyder for hearings, and he's like, no, F you, I want to be on my boat off the shores of France. Which, I mean, I can't blame the man. I mean, this time of year to be on a boat in France, like, dang. You know what? Like that. If I could switch lives with a guy for one day, I'm talking about one day, I want to be Dan Snyder for one day. Not to deal with the rest of it. I just want to be on that boat.
I feel like I could choose someone better.
I mean, I just want to be on that boat in France for a day and then, back to my regular life. I just want that. I don't want all the other bad stuff. Give me the non-Congress deposition.
You could choose a place to be for a day.
Yeah, France is a far cry from Bristol, Connecticut. That's for sure.
Well, I wish.
Yeah.
If only. And now I'm sad. My predictions. So Giants are last for me. I wanted to go with the shtick of having the Giants at first, but I just couldn't see myself doing it. Giants are last place for me. I don't see a situation, and I've talked so much about Daniel Jones. I can't pick him. I can't pick him now. I just can't. So Giants are last place for me. Third place, Philadelphia Eagles. Wow. I doubt Jalen Hurts' development a lot. I really do. I hate to say it, but there's just something about that offense that I think is going to take a step back this year. And also that, like, I know I mentioned some of the names before on defense, or kids are rubbing his hands. I know I mentioned some of the names before on that defense. Like, that defense is good, but I don't think it's great. And it could be great a couple weeks, but I have a couple doubts on the consistency of that division, of that defense, to perform on a week in and week out basis. And the Eagles are also, like, I know you mentioned the easy schedule, Justin, but the Eagles are not definitively for me a team that I expect them to run through an easy schedule, like, with ease. Like, I still have a couple doubts with them. If they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong. But I have the Eagles as my third place team. Second place. I'm doing this to myself again.
Come to the dark side. We have cheese doodles.
Well, that convinced me. Second place, I have the Dallas Cowboys in first.
Yes! Go! Join the bandwagon.
They burnt. Not the first time I've been burned by a team multiple times with division predictions. So, Washington, you'll join an exclusive club there in recent years. But I think Dallas lost a lot. I think Amari Cooper, like we mentioned, losing Amari Cooper, losing Lyle Collins. Michael Gallup is coming off an injury going into the season. I think they've lost a lot, but I just think there's like high-end talent can make up for a lot of things. I think the high-end talent will be enough to make up for Dallas over Philly. But then I think that's where you start to look at things go south for them. And I think the first month and I think the first month and a half they're going to struggle. I think they'll catch a stride, and then I think they're going to trip and fall all over themselves, fall down the stairs, and break their backs at the very end of the season. So I have Dallas as my second place team. And honestly, I mean, I could. Yeah, okay, I'll stick with Dallas as my second place team, and then Washington is my first place team. I think they'll be opportunist enough to take advantage of the division. I don't have them going anything crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if 9-8 wins them the division this year. I'll give them 10 wins, but I wouldn't be surprised if 9-8 can get the job done. So I have Washington just barely being my first place team in this division.
Wow. All right. I was sure you were going to go with Dallas.
I wanted to. Trust me, I wanted to. Like I'm almost considering. I almost wanted to swerve it.
Well,
but the Cheese Doodles got me.
I thought that would have been a good plan because then all four of us would have had a different division winner. Because Sandoval could just say the Giants and be wrong for once in his goddamn life.
Watch the Giants win the division with Sandoval.
Oh.
Would be. Yeah.
Well,
you know what? I'll let Washington burn me one more time.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna stick with the three of you. I got the Giants in last place. I see them more of as a 5-12 kind of team. Maybe 6-11, but things are going to get worse before they get better there. I'm going to have Washington at 7-10. There's just a lot of toss-up games that I don't think they're ready to win, and I don't think Carson Wentz is the answer there, especially with a poor offensive line and a worse running game, which he relied on a lot in Indianapolis last year. So,
Justin, what size Cole Strange jersey are you going to take for that? I'm on right now. I'm looking for right now.
Second place, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I think I'm going to go 9-8. I think they'll have a decent season. They're still better than a lot of teams. They should win a few divisional games, even if they go 500 in interleague play outside of their division. They should still be a solid team. And I'm going to go real hot here. I'm going to have the Eagles win 12. I think that they're really going to go. Yeah, they have a really easy schedule.
I'm sorry. Did you say 12?
Yeah, probably maybe 11.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
I think that they have a really easy schedule. I don't think it's unheard of for them to start 4-0. Their schedule doesn't get a lot more difficult. They have the Texans later on. They have an easy division in the AFC South. They really should win most of their divisional games. Even if they split with the Cowboys, I could see them taking, 4 games from the rest of the division. They could easily sweep Washington and the Giants, and I wouldn't bat an eye. So, that for an easy 5 games there, and interleague play being, outside of the division play being the easier schedule that they have, they could win 11 games this year. So, I'm going to put them at 11-6. And winning the division and either being a 3rd seed or a 4th seed in the NFC.
There's only one way. There's only one way to describe Rick on A, you having them in 3rd, and B, for that momentary thing where you had.
I have the Eagles going 17-0 and winning the Super Bowl. No.
Well, this was Rick when you had them at just 12 wins.
Wait a minute. Just wait a damn second here.
That was Rick.
Blasphemous.
Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. So we got the Eagles in first place for Justin. We got the Washington football team, Commanders, reskins, racial slurs, whatever you want to call them, formerly racial slurs actually. In first place for Rick. Sandoval has the Giants, and I have joined Rick on the dark side with Washington, and I'm kind of regretting it. I kind of just want to go with Dallas actually now. So,
but cheese doodles are only $2, Jerg.
I'm starting to switch on that pick now.
Cheese doodles are only $2. Why would he accept the free one? Why wouldn't he go with his gut?
I'm saying if he wants more of them, he can have more of them. Like I can send these to Bristol and he can have them, but if he wants to get more of them, I'm not gonna. He's not UNICEF. I'm not gonna send him $2 every time he wants damn cheese doodles.
What reference? But I'll stick with my pick. I did want to go with Dallas, but then something made me switch my mind. But I'll stick with Washington. I don't know. I'll fall down with the ship as commanders of the vessel. A commander / captain goes down with his ship, and we might be going down with that ship this season. Who knows? So we have that. Now, it is the end of the NFC East. We will return next week, ladies and gentlemen, for the greatness that is the AFC West. But before the end of the episode, you guys know what time it is. Rantin Rick's Rostrum podium in the rant room near the den of danger and darkness. We have, I think, what could be a very good one. Rick said that he has a very hot take. Well, I don't know if it was a hot take, but just a hot rant for us this week. I can't wait for it. Rick, take it away. What is the rant of the week?
Whew. Well, I mean, I've kind of batted this one back and forth, but I think for me, this week's going to be a little bit of an off branch shoot, just because what my top rant's not going to be really a rant; it's going to be highlighting something strange that I discovered. So I'll give you my number 3, my number 2, because they're typical. Number 3, the Stop and Shop Deli department. I put an order in the kiosk. It was number 9. It took you guys 45 minutes to get to my order. You were on number 7, and then I'm like, oh, I'm number 9, and this is them. What number are you? Number 9? So I actually had to leave the store, go home because I had Frozens in my shopping bag. And as soon as I turn the car off, I get a text. Oh, your order's ready for pickup. Really, Stop and Shop? I'm going to Lidl for all of my damn groceries at this point. Like, you guys are just ridiculous with this stuff. Number 2. This has been highlighted a little bit in the news lately. And again, I get it because we're still in the time of the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. But if you're a world leader, don't fist bump somebody. Joe Biden fist bumped Mohammed bin Salman and was caught on photo. And now it's like the biggest thing ever. Like, really? I get it. Donald Trump shoved the Prime Minister of Montenegro out of the way once. Now we're fist bumping Saudi Arabians. I mean, it's a handshake, a smile, or a picture. That's fine. But let's think of something different. Fist bumps are like, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have someone pat somebody on the ass on their way to a G7 conference. I was going to say it'd be Boris Johnson, but he resigned. So, neither here nor there. Number 1, there's a vineyard in South Africa that I just learned about this the other day, that, there are jobs at vineyards where it's more about things that are like, protecting the grapes, protecting the wine, protecting all of that from anything, from insects, worms, whatnot. There's a vineyard in South Africa. I, for the life of me, am not going to try to pronounce the name because it's Afrikaans, and I do not want to insult the good people of South Africa in Cape Town, unlike Wales. But regardless,
I was about to say F the Welsh, but
listen.
Yeah.
The Welsh and I are on good terms, but they know full well they need to put more vowels into their town names. That's neither here nor there. So, this vineyard in South Africa has a horde of soldiers, essentially, that is protecting the vineyard from all, creatures and all types of blight, if you will. When I say soldiers, I'm talking about the flightless Indian runner duck. There are videos on YouTube and on other news sites of these 1,700 ducks that are best known for their upright stance and their highly developed sense of smell. What their job is to go through the vineyard and check for, any kind of bad plants or any kind of worms, insects, or whatnot. You know how long they do this for? 2 weeks. 1,700 ducks for 2 weeks checking a vineyard. And then because, it's like, oh, well, they fly away because, if they stayed, they would eat the grapes. Why are you hiring ducks in the first place? They like to eat the food. And it's just like, according to the vineyard owner, the vineyards also has a restaurant where they serve duck eggs. But not the ducks themselves because, and I quote, that would be like eating a colleague. Then why? I kind of want to go to this vineyard just to watch this in action. But then again, it's South Africa, and right now it's the summer here, so it's the winter there. So I have to find a time where it works for my schedule, and Sandoval will come too, and we'll do the show live from, Johannesburg or something like that. But at the same time, it's just like, it's a weird thing What I will say is the way this article ended is typical of how bad we are at writing nowadays, too. The line was about, like, if other vineyards want to do this, et cetera, quote, they would be quackers not to. I think you guys know from my writing stance and how we used to write recaps, this is moronic. This is absolutely like child's play. This is the equivalent of putting an emoji into a high-grade level English paper. This is like ending your book report on War and Peace with the emoji. like, no. Just no. Let's be reasonable, people. And whoever's going to South Africa with me, let's go see some ducks. Let's see what happens. But not anybody who works in the Stop Shop Deli department because you're terrible at your life. Oh, and Duncan still sucks.
The best part about the rants, and Justin, you could attest to this, we never know what it's about. And it's always something different. That is the best part of the rants. It's like maybe sometimes the topics can connect here and there, but it's always something different. And I love it. It's amazing. Just, oh my God. Justin, do you have any words to follow that up? That was speechless.
An honorable mention, by the way, Dead and Company, you don't play Touch of Grey at every single one of your performances. That's the seminal Grateful Dead song. I will not die on this hill. Like Commanders, who are the NFC East champions.
Justin, enjoy the Grateful Dead tonight, brother, because you're going tonight too. So enjoy that tonight. Rick and Sandoval have future vacation plans to set up, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do around here. So that brings it into this week's episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. The NFC East, man, what analysis. Some different division winners between us. As we have a ringing endorsement of a adorable doggo with the Washington Commanders hat. We have, technically that's a football team hat. But irregardless, thank you all so much for joining us on this week's chaotic episode, per usual, the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. As we always like to say every single week, we love to have fun, we love to talk football, and we love to spread just a little bit of chaos whenever we can. So
wear the hat in the outro.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. We'll be back next week to discuss the most bloodbath division that's projected for this season, the AFC West. You don't want to miss that one, because I think that one is going to bring even more chaos. Thank you all so much. We will see you all next time.